T. Diescovare. If you are listening to this tape, I no longer exist. Not because I died. Death is a luxury of a linear timeline. I no longer exist because I was never born. My name was Arthur Vance. I was a senior investigator for the Temporal Policing Department. Our job wasn't to stop people from traveling through time. Our job was to clean up the mess when they did. Most people think time travel is about grandeur, saving empires, stopping catastrophic wars, meeting historical giants. It isn't. The universe doesn't care about kings. The universe cares about data. And the most dangerous crimes are the ones that look like complete accidents. Before this case, there was another one, 1987. A man went back to stop the Challenger disaster. He succeeded, but in that new timeline, the space program never recovered from the near-miss scandal. The funding shifted to military tech. By 2020, a surveillance satellite malfunctioned and crashed into a school. 400 children, all because one man wanted to save 7 astronauts. I kept a photograph of that school in my pocket. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself that mercy is just violence with better PR. It happened in a budget motel off Route 66, room 404. The year was 1994. A routine anomaly sweep picked up a localized chronological spike. Someone had dropped an anchor there. When I arrived, the room was empty. No time machine, no futuristic gadgets. Just a smell of ozone. A half-eaten sandwich that hadn't decayed in 30 years, and a single microcassette tape on the nightstand. The carpet was that sickly orange, brown color you only find in places where hope goes to die. The air conditioner rattled like a dying animal. On the nightstand, next to the tape, there was a Gideon's Bible open to Ecclesiastes. Someone had underlined a line in red pen, "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity." I wondered if Thomas had done that, or if the universe was just mocking me. I played it. And that's when my reality began to tear at the seams. Th. Crime E. The voice on the microcassette belonged to a man named Thomas Reed. He wasn't a scientist. He was a low-level accountant from the year 2026. He didn't build a time machine. He bought a black, market temporal rift device. A cheap, unstable piece of tech that could only send a person back exactly 30 years. For exactly 10 minutes, before snapping them back to their origin. Thomas didn't want to kill a dictator. He had a much pettier, much more sinister plan. Before I continue, you need to understand who Thomas Reed was, not just what he did, who he was. He wasn't a monster. He was a broken man with a credit card and a grudge, and this is what he recorded on that tape, in his own voice. You want to know what he did? My boss, David's son. His name is Marcus. In 2026, Marcus found a rounding error in my quarterly report.
A rounding error!
I lost my pension. My wife left. My daughter stopped taking my calls. Last week I ate ramen for the 9th night in a row and watched Marcus on a yacht in Monaco on Instagram. That's when I bought the Rift device. On the tape, Thomas whispered into the microphone, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and twisted euphoria. He said, "It's 3:14 p.m., August 14th, 1994. I am looking out the window of room 44. Across the street, a young man named David is walking toward a bookstore. In 3 minutes, he will meet a woman named Sarah. They will talk. They will fall in love. 30 years later, they will have a son. That son will grow up to become my boss, the man who ruined my career, destroyed my life, and drove me to this desperation." Thomas Reed didn't bring a weapon to 1994. He brought a quarter. On the tape, I heard the sound of the motel door opening. Thomas walked out to the payphone on the corner. He dropped the quarter in. He dialed a random number, intentionally misdialing by 1 digit. He asked for directions to a place that didn't exist. He kept the line busy for exactly 90 seconds. Across the street, David heard the payphone ringing. Out of sheer curiosity, he stopped. He picked it up. He said, "Hello." Thomas didn't answer. He just listened to his future boss's father breathe for a few seconds, and then hung up. 90 seconds. That was the crime. Because of those 90 seconds, David missed his window. Sarah walked out of the bookstore and caught a bus that she would have otherwise missed. They never made eye contact. They never spoke. The conversation that was supposed to spark a 30-year family history never happened. THBCARFLYEFFFET, as I sat in that motel room in 1994, listening to the end of the tape, the snapback mechanism activated. Thomas Reed was dragged back to his own time, 2026. He thought he had won. He thought he would return to a corporate office where his hated boss simply didn't exist, replaced by someone else. But Thomas was an accountant, not a chronologist. He didn't understand the mathematics of the void. If David and Sarah never met, their son was never born. If their son was never born, he never became a boss. If he never became a boss, he never ruined Thomas Reed's life. And if Thomas Reed's life was never ruined, why would Thomas Reed ever buy a time machine to travel back to 1994? A causal loop, a paradox. The universe cannot resolve a contradiction. It doesn't explode, it just heals itself by amputating the infected limb. It deletes the branch. As the tape played its final seconds, I looked down at my own hands. My skin was turning translucent. I could see the framework of the motel room through my own fingers. I checked my digital database. The temporal policing department wasn't responding. The signal was dead. Why? Because 30 years later, Thomas Reed's ripple effect didn't just stop at his boss. Sarah, who missed her bus, took a taxi. That taxi hit a car. That car belonged to the man who would eventually recruit me into the department. The accident changed his life. He moved to another state, and the department was never funded. The fracture was spreading backward and forward at the speed of thought. And then I saw something through the motel window. A man who looked like me, same coat, same tired eyes, walking toward the bookstore. But he wasn't an investigator. He was a mailman. In the timeline where Sarah took the taxi, where the department was never funded, that version of me lived a quiet life. He had a wife, a dog, a mortgage. He would never know what a temporal spike was.
I tried to scream at him, warn him.
But he couldn't hear me. I was a ghost watching my own grave from the inside. The motel room began to flicker, fluorescent lights dying one by one. I could feel the edges of my memory smoothing out like sanded glass. My own mother's face started to blur. The Khan Usayan. Every choice you make is a pebble thrown into a dark lake. You think you can control the ripples, but the water always wins. Thomas Reed wanted to erase one man. Instead, he shattered a mirror, and we are all trapped in the broken shards. The motel room is fading now. The walls are turning into grey mist. I am recording this onto the same microcassette, leaving it in the void between realities. If the timeline ever resets, if the fragments ever find their way back together, let this tape be a warning. Do not touch the past. It is a loaded gun, and the bullet travels backward. The tape is running low. I have maybe 30 seconds before the mist takes me. I want to say something profound, something that will matter. But all I can think about is that half-eaten sandwich. Turkey on rye, no decay, preserved like a fossil. Thomas must have left it there. A man so consumed by revenge that he didn't even finish his lunch. If you find this tape, don't investigate. Don't be curious. Curiosity is just hope with a PhD. Walk away. Live your small, beautiful, linear life. This is Investigator Arthur Vance, signing off from a reality that no longer exists.